All right, guys, we're going to be talking about my industry Endgame in this video. I'm going to be pretty much shifting focus in Eve to covering pretty much all of industry, not just mining, PI, that stuff, because I think that there's kind of a severe lack of in-depth industry coverage, and also that's kind of about one of my major goals in Eve. So we'll kind of talk about that first. The the point at which I want to get to in Eve with industry. So I'll kind of paint you a little bit of a picture here. Like my goal at the end of the road is to have a stockpile of raw materials and own quite a bit, if not almost all, of the purchasable BPOs. Have them max researched, and at any one time, be able to just kind of build items and kind of like look and camp the market and make profits that way. Now, this can be a lot of work if you don't kind of like make some preparations for yourself. And so I'm going to be talking in this video about the preparations I'm making to get there, but also the rules I'm putting in place in order to make sure that I'm successful in that. So we're going to be looking at a lot of the spreadsheets that I've built for myself. I like building spreadsheets. It's a hobby of mine. Even if I wasn't doing Eve industry content, I'd be still making spreadsheets for my own benefit in game and things like that. It's kind of like a thought exercise and something that I like to do. So we're also going to kind of talk about how I'm structured in terms of alts and how all that stuff kind of goes. We're going to be covering quite a bit in this video. So to start us off, what you're looking at here is the industry window. I'm just on one of my alts doing product discovery. And I kind of like loop product discovery into industry because a lot of the income I get from product discovery I use for like researching BPOs and stuff. So, even in the future on this channel, if I'm talking about product discovery, like I consider it a form of industry. So right now we're looking at all of the jobs that are currently being ran right now for research. I've started actually buying a lot of BPOs. Every time I go to JITA, I'll buy like 100 BPOs or so. And I'm tracking all that in a spreadsheet so I don't double buy and stuff. But this is important for structuring. Now, not everybody's going to be in their own corporation and be able to do what I'm about to talk about. But if you are, this is one of the benefits of actually running your own corporation with your alts. We basically give all the BPOs to our corporation, put them in corporation hangars. So this is the actual manufacturing station we're in right now. So the Blueprints Corp hangar here is only holding, fully researched BPOs. And so we can go in here. If we look at BPOs, we can go to current station and we can see all of those. There's a separate station that actually handles doing research. So we have like 512 BPOs in there right now. And these are all the ones that are like, slowly getting researched and stuff like that. So the benefit of, and the same thing in that other station, I don't have an alt over there, but the same thing in that station, that corp hangar for blueprints has all of those unresearched blueprints in it. That gives the corporation possession. That allows us to actually pull them in the spreadsheets and kind of like calculate what we have. But also we're able to be on any alt that's in our corporation that's a director and start a job, a corporation job. So right here we look at owned by corp, and then when we go to research something like this coprocessor 1 blueprint, we can also select here, we use the corporate wallet to start the job, and this allows us to put in a ton and kind of manage it from whatever character we're on. I want to say we have like 86 or so slots right now. All of my alts right now are prioritizing laboratory operations and advanced laboratory operations. And I'll talk a little bit more about industry slots later on. But one of the most important things I would say for the type of industry that I want to do in the end game requires all these alts to have, 11 science jobs and 11 manufacturing jobs and 11 research jobs, that 11, 11, 11. And then depending on how many alts you're using, that scales, right? Because when we get to a point where we're kind of done doing research, then all of those alts are going to be building stuff. And they'll be able to build stuff just like we're doing here, right? So when we go to manufacture something, we will basically change the input location to our raw materials folder, and then we can set the output to export. And so the corporation will own all the raw stuff. So as long as that alt has a slot, we can pull from the corporation stockpile and then export directly to the export folder, which is great. So that's a major goal. Right now, they're all training. They're almost done training. They're all into like advanced laboratory operations right now. Once they get done with that, we will shift all of their training into mass production and advanced mass production, and then finally into research and advanced research, or reactions and advanced reactions. We'll also be doing other training for them as well. So like metallurgy, research, make sure their science and industry skills are all up to date. We will then start working a lot on the small ship construction, like all that stuff kind of goes up into the production line. But research is one of the biggest things. If you're trying to get into like high level industry, you're researching your BPOs is very, very important. Not so important for Tech 2 manufacturing, because you can take a BPO, you can copy it, and then you'll use that copy to do an invention to get your Tech 2 blueprint. And depending on what you put in for that invention, you're going to get an METE. Your mineral efficiency, time efficiency will be based on that. So if you're kind of focusing down and want to do like Tech 2 stuff, then, researching the BPOs is not super important. But as a rule of thumb for me, I'm researching everything. All my BPOs that can be researched will be researched. And that's kind of like phase one. Now, this next portion, we're going to be talking about how to ensure, or how to like kind of calculate profits. Like, how do you know, like, you'll be able to build something and sell it and not lose ISK on that venture. You can approach industry in several different ways, manufacturing in several different ways. You can look at it, very short term, where you look at the value of the input materials and you buy those or you mine those or do whatever, and then you build the thing, and then you try to like move that inventory with the best margins possible. That can be very volatile. The approach that I'm going to take for my goals is going to be, I want to approach industry manufacturing in a sense of I can go at any time where, raw materials are at like a 52-week low or better, and I can buy at will any of those compressed ores or compressed gas or ice, or I can, buy PI or buy whatever I need at, the 52-week low, and kind of stockpile that stuff up. I really want to get to the point where I can just have like a bunch of raw materials that I've bought under certain conditions, and then when I go to build something, I can use that same metric to calculate if those materials are worth building the end product, and then what that end product can end up doing. Now, for manufacturing, just like with skill point farming, in my opinion, time is your best friend. If you have, patience, and you're able to spend a lot of time and buy stuff and stockpile stuff at low, 52-week lows for your materials, and then you build that product and you're able to hold that product until you can see that product hit like a 52-week high or something, and then you move that inventory, that is the best way to ensure profits. If you are looking at like, a Heron on, the market, and you're like, it has really good margins right now, so you go and you buy the materials for it, you build the thing. By the time you get it manufactured and to market and ready to post it, the margin could be gone, right? So I really don't approach industry like that. I want to be able to buy materials at a low price. I want to be able to build whatever I want to build, and then, look at the market. And when the market's good for a certain item and I have that in stock, I offload it. And the best way to do that is just give yourself time and be patient, and also just having the spreadsheets available to you for all of that. So we're going to start looking at spreadsheets here. You guys know I love spreadsheets. So we're going to be looking at a couple. I've kind of been working through my spreadsheet kind of library, cleaning things up quite a bit. I don't know if a lot of these will be available on Patreon. A lot of this stuff is kind of, purpose built for me and everything. If there is one of these that I can generalize and put up on Patreon, I probably will. So the first one we're going to look at is actually, because like right now we're in the BPO acquisition phase. So if you're kind of like, wanting to follow along with this whole like kind of industry endgame, acquiring BPOs can be a little bit obnoxious, right? You want to be able to make sure you can track which ones you have, And when you go to buy them, you don't risk buying more than you need. So we're going to go ahead and open this all the way back up because I do have it kind of sorted down a little bit. But so essentially what we have is we have the name of the BPO, we have the market group ID, the group ID, and then the group name here. And then we have another field. This is a hard variable field, owned, yes, no, or unknown, or yes, no, unavailable. Unavailable would be like, there might be a seed, or like somebody moves one of the seeds to JITA and it's not there, because not everything has a JITA price. This is all going to be based on JITA price. The reason I have a JITA price in here is it allows me to see what BPOs I can get in JITA. And so normally what I'll do is I'll sort this by lowest to highest, and I'll come in here and just buy 100 every once in a while. Now, 330 billion is like the total cost of everything that has prices. Now, the most of that value is actually in the last 50 or 25 things here. Like, Leviathan Blueprint is like 70 billion, and then your Nyx, Hell, all these things are like 20 billion or so. So out of that 330 billion, just these 25 right here make up 201 billion of that. So what I normally do is sort by lowest, and kind of buy this stuff. It allows me to get more things kind of popping. Now, this group over here is actually a pretty interesting group here. Formula, and this field will basically search the corporation assets for the name of the blueprint, and if it finds it, then it will put a Y in this field. So it's kind of more of an automatic status, like more of a way to automatically tell if we have the BPO or not, rather than just putting in the hard value when we buy it. Now, what this will also do as well is if it doesn't find it in corporate assets, then it's going to search another spreadsheet that I have that shows active industry jobs, because if a BP is being used, if a BPO is being used, it will not show up in corporation assets. So if we want to confirm that we own a BPO so we don't buy it again, we need to check corporation assets. Another benefit of having all the, doing all the things on the corporate side. And also we want to be able to check active job slots. And we're going to look at that active job kind of thing in a second, because that's something I put together that was has really been helping me a lot. And so if we have the BPO and it's available, or if we have the BPO or it's in use, whatever, it will show up here. This will probably be the metric I'll start using. And that's another thing too, is like, let's say you're traveling somewhere with some BPOs in like a ship, and that ship gets destroyed and you lose those BPOs. Instead of going back on that kill mail and going through the spreadsheet and clearing the Y, the owned yes field for each one of those, we're letting ESI kind of update, all that stuff. But also, if you like put that BPO from the corp hangar into like a ship for a player, then it's probably not going to update. It's going to update anyway and show that you don't own it, since this is targeting either in use or corporation assets and stuff like that. So we can also sort here. So like right now we sorted by owned. This is like the hard value I put in. But as you can see right here, it shows that we have a bunch of stuff in use. So if we actually filter this down, we'll take off the Y's and the blanks. This actually shows everything that we have in research right now. And like we get a count on this. Then we get a count of 88. So that means we have 88 blueprints in use right now. So that means that we own it, obviously. And then we also select Y in there too. You can see there's, we have these crystals are actually already done researching, and that matches up here. So after a few more weeks, I'll probably get rid of this manually entered field here. I might still use it, honestly, because when I go to buy BPOs, I do like to have the ability to put in, when I buy 100 of them, that's, I can have the ability to put yes in there, and then I can line things up a little bit. I will go blanks here, and then we'll sort by low. So if I'm going to go buy another 100 right now, I would start here with the RAM Ammunition Tech Blueprint. The reason I say 100 is because that's all you can put into multi-buy. So that's what I do. So I'd come in here, I'd select 100 rows, all of these. They all have JITA prices. So I'd go in there and just copy this import it into multi-buy, hit buy. Once I buy them all, I'll come in here and put yeses on all of those that I just bought. And then we'll do a courier contract out to where they're going to get researched. And once they actually hit the corporation wallet, then this field over here will get updated. Now this is nice. This is like a long-term thing. Like once you actually kind of own everything, you probably don't need something like this, but this is great for acquiring. Once we actually get to the point where we've acquired everything that has a price in JITA, it might get a little more difficult. I've removed a lot of BPOs from this list. This started off as a huge master list, but that master list will return like Tech 2 blueprints or faction blueprints, or the blueprints for like precursor stuff that drops out of abyssals. So a lot of that stuff has been trimmed out of here. There's still some stuff that probably needs to be trimmed out as well again, but I'll worry about when the list gets smaller on the acquisition side to worry about that. So we'll talk about the other spreadsheet that kind of helps this column work is my orders and jobs right here. Now this has been a lifesaver, honestly. This has been just so good to me because it allows me to kind of hit refresh on this outside of game, and it allows me to see, because like any of these characters in the corporation, when the job is done, any of them can hit deliver all and return all that, the BPOs and all that stuff to the corp hangar. And then if you don't have something like this, then you're looking at a situation where it's like, okay, well, what character slot did I just deliver the BPO, or did the BPO get done from? It can be a little confusing, especially if you're dealing with 11, or more characters. So what I have over here in this far right is basically I'm calculating I'm basically, I have the installer name right here for all the jobs, and I'm looking at this whole row and I'm counting all of the alt's names and putting it in here. And then I'm also calculating that alt's skill level for laboratory operation and advanced laboratory operations, and that would give me a 9 of 9. So if I go in here and I complete a bunch of these jobs, then I can refresh this. I can see exactly what tune I need to log into to install more jobs, which is great. The other thing this one's doing, this is not a very fancy spreadsheet. I still got to like kind of, make it pretty. But we also are tracking contracts in here too. So this will show outstanding contracts. So if we have couriers, if we're importing stuff from JITA, it'll show courier contracts outstanding. And then whenever those contracts go into in process, it'll show right here. If I know I have a courier contract out and I don't see it in outstanding or in process, that means it's been completed. So then I can log in and kind of sort all that stuff. Then we have this over here as the market orders. This shows all the market orders that are set up. I usually only put market orders on one tune right now. But as we kind of scale out, I'll, increase this to probably, corp wide, or like, add a bunch more alts into this. This allows me to see which market orders are up, how many, what the volume is, like, starting volume and how much is left, what's selling. And obviously right here, this is all of the active industry jobs with their time remaining. This was actually a pretty crazy bit of math I had to do to figure out, but this will give you an idea of, like, you can't sort this because it's all based on an array, but this gives you an idea of like everything that's being researched right now. So, and this shows a total. So 88, if you remember back in that other spreadsheet we were looking at, we counted all those in use on the database, and that was 88. And so this lines up. So all good to go there. Now, let's talk about a couple of the other things in like kind of the principles of acquiring raw materials, because my goal is to actually just stockpile a bunch of crap and then be able to build or whatever I want at whenever I want, and then be able to sell that stuff whenever the market's really good for it. So this is just an updated version of the industry kind of Explorer, the BPO Explorer. I've added a lot to this. This is very determined on like how I do things, but we have a bunch of cool stuff in here now with this. But we can actually track, based on the corporation raw materials, what we actually own in terms of what we need. I also changed this to only show prices. This is not going to show current prices. I changed this to show 52-week lows because I'm only buying raw materials when they're at their 52-week lows. And so as long as I'm acquiring raw materials at that range of value, then that's going to make this accurate and stuff like that. I'm also tracking volume. I'm tracking volume because if I want to import something, then I can see exactly how much it'll cost me to import it into nullsec, and I can work that into my margins as well. But for instance, let's go to Venture. I've also turned off automatic updates for this spreadsheet because there's a lot of things like, I basically just update each sheet as I'm kind of working through it and everything. I also added a top level material here. This is a this is like a BPO explosion. It'll show you all the raw and everything required, but you might, for the Ray, for instance, it shows you all the raw you need. Top level materials is going to be like all the capital ship parts that you're still going to have to run. And also like the Charon that you're going to have. Like everything in the loot explosion is essentially just going to be, everything in the loot explosion is just going to be everything down to the absolute raw. But other than that, like this hasn't really changed too much, but kind of made it a little bit more pretty and stuff like that. But also I'm like tracking volume here too for whatever product station ID we have. Because even though something has really good margins, you want to still make sure you can move that inventory. So if something can have really good margins but only sell like 1 unit a week, probably not worth building a lot of them because you won't be able to move them that much. But like a venture has like, a decent, volume. That's an average volume for that as well. But also if we like go back to our jump freighter here, that'll also update volume as well. So like, yeah, 7, like, so you see jump raiders are, good profit margins, but their volume is much lower than lower class ships. And that's all stuff you're going to take into consideration. Now this spreadsheet would be something that I'd be using to determine, after I already have like a stockpile of materials, what I want to build. All these values, like I said, are based on 52-week lows for each of these components. And so that moves us into the next part that I want to talk about is material acquisition. And this is how you can really lock in some profits and everything. So I have 2 spreadsheets here. One is MOGI. So MOGI is basically stands for moon or gas ice. So what we're looking at, anything that's like we can compress, and we'd be using this to like, ship stuff out to nullsec because we want to buy the compressed version and then reprocess it out there. Now what this is going to show, these are, I have this as, we're going to zoom in on this a little bit because it's a little hard to see. There's a lot of stuff in this sheet. So we have station ID, which is JITA. It shows the name there. So we have the name of the item, the type ID, the volume of that item. We have the name of the compressed version of that. And then also, this is units column you can kind of ignore. This is basically like the max cubic meters that I can set a courier contract up, divided by the volume. And it lets me know if like I want to send a complete freight load, a max freight load out to nullsec with just compressed Veldspar, then I need to buy X number of units, right? And then it shows the same value for that. So I can basically export, or I can technically import 4.2 billion worth of compressed Veldspar, and I would still be good in the maximum cubic meters for the freight service I use. This is also going to show the type ID for the compressed unit, the volume for the compressed unit. That's how we're getting this number, because we're taking our the maximum amount of cubic meters for the freight service divided by the volume. And then this is where it gets really nice. It's like we have 52-week low average, and then we have a 52-week median average, and we have a 52-week high average. And then the current price. The current price will turn green if you are at or below the 52-week low. So as you can see right now, the lowest it's been the past 52 weeks for Veldspar has been, for compressed Veldspar that is, has been 13, and we're currently sitting at 11.12. And so it's green, that's a buy for me. If I need it, that's a buy, right? Whereas like this right here, Scordite, its 52-week low is 20, and it's at 32.72. Not going to buy Scordite right now. Not going to do it. We want to make sure we're always buying at the 52-week low or better, because like I said, our industry thing here is all based on 52-week low. And our total goal is to be able to just stockpile a bunch of stuff, and we know what we've come in on as far as the value of those materials. Because if you're looking at this and you're looking at current material value, you're basically getting a view of what that material is worth now and what the product is worth now. But I'm always only buying materials at the lowest possible on the 52-week low. That means I can come in here, and that's why I changed all this to only represent 52-week lows, because it'll give me a better overall accuracy for my total profits. Go back to Mogi. And so you can just kind of like, what I do in here is I'll refresh this every day. If I'm going to go buy stuff, I'll come in here and I'll look and be like, okay, what is Jaspit over here? Jasper, 50-week low is, 613. We're at 597. That's a buy. And just depending on what I need, like if I need like isogen, then I'll go look at, stuff that produces isogen. And if it's, at a 52-week low or better, I'll buy it just to stockpile it. Now, this is where capital comes into play. Like, if you want to like infinitely scale like industry as an end goal, time and patience, that's, one pillar of it. Capital is another thing of it. And the whole foundation of being able to just stockpile a bunch of raw material and build whatever you want is based on capital. And so once we move into phase 2, like right now we're in phase 1, we're just kind of gathering up BPOs, training alts. When we start getting into phase 2, where it's like acquiring some of this stuff, then we can, start, we'll probably start tracking each of these. I'll probably put another field out here that I'll pull corporation assets, and we'll probably be tracking all of the broken down materials for a lot of this stuff. So all the ice products, all of the Morphite, the Trit, Mexilon, Zydrine, all that stuff. We'll get a running list of everything. I'll probably actually expand Mogi out to the point where for each of these line items, I will just, be able to put in here everything that it, comes out of it, and be able to like, more easily be able to buy different variants. I'm probably going to add more variants in here too, like all the other tiers of each one of these, most likely. But this is a good basis. I'm not really at the material acquisition phase yet, but we'll expand on this when we do. Now we look at like, some of the other raw inputs for like array, for instance. You see a lot of gas, you see a lot of moon goo, you see PI at all different levels, materials at all different levels. So we're also doing the same thing with PI. So we have another spreadsheet here, just like the Mogi one, but this is just called PI. Now this is actually tracking P1 through P4, and this is the same principle that the Mogi sheet had. It's actually, I copied the Mogi sheet and just took out some of the other stuff like the compressed stuff and everything. But it shows the name, the type ID, the volume, the number of units I can get in a freight service, the value of that, and a 52-week low, median, and high, and then looking at the current price. I also have the on hand over here because I do produce a lot of PI. It's kind of like one of my little hobbies in nullsec. And I probably won't import PI, but it allows me to kind of see how I'm doing. So for instance, like if you want to just stockpile a bunch of P4, you just, convert all your P1 into P4 until you get, a good amount, and then you can, convert all the way up to P3 until you have a good amount of that. Convert all the way up until like P2, and you have a stockpile of that, and then you can just stockpile P1. And so you end up having like, a bunch of everything. You kind of need to stockpile everything, because depending on what you're building, you might need P1 as an input, or you might need P2 or 3 or whatever. And look, my ultimate goal is to just kind of have everything on hand. So a sheet like this is going to work really well. But also, like if I wanted to do the same thing I wanted to do with like, moon or gas and ice, I could do the same thing with this. I can look at, bacteria, or for instance, like biocells. I have 0 on hand, mostly because they all got turned into P3. But if I wanted to go and buy a bunch of biocells, we're at a pretty good price right now. We're actually below 52-week low. So that would actually be a pretty good acquisition. The only problem is PEI can be pretty heavy in terms of importing it into nullsec and things like that. But moving forward on this channel, we're going to be looking at a lot of kind of like big picture industry stuff. A lot of my focus over the past 2 years has just been purely for mining. We did have the solo industry series where I was kind of doing stuff in high sec, but it was very limited and everything. Moving forward, I'm just going to try to be a generalized, industry, do generalized industry content, not just, shoehorned into just mining or PI or manufacturing. I'm going to be kind of doing it all, like really big picture stuff and all of that. But I wanted to kind of make this video to explain what my industry end game is, kind of what I feel is important. I'll reiterate that: time, patience, right? Capital, and just building tools for yourself, building like your industry Bible, so to speak. So like for me, like a hard rule for my industry would be like only buying compressed, material at or below 52-week lows. Like that's a requirement, because if we stick to that rule, then when we go to look at what we can build and we want an accurate representation of the material value, which is also using that same metric, we can ensure that those profits that we're seeing, those margins we're seeing, are accurate. Now, also, whenever we produce our product, we will be holding that as well. That's the other rule. Is whenever I go to sell like a product, like a T1 hull or whatever it is, I'm also going to be looking at. I'm probably actually going to build a spreadsheet that's going to like track inventory. And so we'll track inventory. We'll put like all of the inventory in like one corp hanger, and I'll be able to see everything that we have that is in inventory that we want to sell. And then we'll also do the same thing we did with the other two spreadsheets. We'll pull a 52-week low, median, and high, and we'll only try to sell those things when they are at or above the 52-week high. And so that's where the patience thing come in. We're patient and waiting to get good deals on materials at the lows, and we're patient to move inventory at the highs. And that you just need those hard and fast rules, and you can make a serious profit. The other thing that goes into this, like I said, is capital. The more capital you have, like 10% of, like if I spend $1 billion, or if I spend 10 billion and I make $1 billion on it, that's pretty good in my book. And then that's, you want that to scale. So 100 billion spent, 10 billion profits, so forth. And then all those alts, like even if your alts do absolutely nothing but provide you manufacturing research slots, that's good too, because you can just sit there and just like start jobs and continually turning that material into products, and put them, build up your inventory, and then be able to just kind of sit there and play and sell stuff, as the market comes around for certain things. But that's gonna be it. Thank you guys for watching.